In this video segment, we'll be talking about the Renaissance. And it started year 1450 for music. Visual arts starts a little earlier, year 1300 AD. And this time definitely comes with new ideas. So in this video, I will be giving you a general overview of the Renaissance. So as far as new ideas go, one philosophy that really became prevalent in the Renaissance is the humanism. And humanism is a philosophy that basically focuses on the individual and his potential. And I want to point it out that this is a huge shift from the medieval, where people didn't see themselves as individuals necessarily with unique contributions or anything like that. If you were not a member of the clergy, or you're not a king or lord in the land, you're basically one more in the masses of people, in a collective of people who were all peasants. So people tended to see themselves more as a collective. And in the Renaissance, this shifts. So now everyone sees themselves as a person with potential. Another value is that there's an emphasis on reason and education. So this definitely is a shift. Medieval society tended to be more religious. If you even consider like the centers of knowledge were the monasteries, which were essentially religious institutions, and now we started to have a shift in there. Another thing that contributed to that aspect is the invention of the printing press, which I will be talking a little more in the next PowerPoint slide. And also there's an increased interest in secular issues. It goes along with what I just mentioned, a little less religious, even though there will still be a lot of religion involved in what we'll talk about. But in general, the societies became a little more secular. And that also came with more interested in the arts, in different types of arts. And not only, for example, using music in the church, but using music in different venues, as we'll see that will start to happen. Now, there's definitely a new surge of wealth. I think you see that. The Renaissance was all about money. Trade had been expanding throughout the Middle Ages, and with that trade came a little more luxury for people, social mobility, an exchange of ideas as well. But in all of that, we also see that prosperity is good for art. So people wanted entertainment now and have the money to pay for it. So three big events as far as history goes. You already saw that this was a time of global exploration. If you watch the video I posted, right before this segment. So one big discovery was Columbus discovering the Americas in 1492. He was planning to go to the India, to the route to the Indias, that's how they used to call, and basically stumbled by this new land and discovered the Americas, where we are right now. So that was a huge thing. And also printing press being invented. I posted a picture here of the first Xerox machine ever. So as you can see, it was very different than these days, and was a German blacksmith, Johannes Gutenberg, who invented the printing press. And things moved really quickly from there. Lots of books started to be published very rapidly, and music books too. So by the year 1500, we have a lot of sheet music being mass produced already. And another big event that affects affected a lot of music was the Protestant Reformation. And Martin Luther, you see a picture of him there together with this other guy, John Calvin. They basically protested against the Catholic Church, which before this was the only church there was, and created his own movement because the Catholic Church did not like his form of protests and how verbal he was, and he was expelled from the Catholic Church, and he ended up starting his own movement, which we call the Protestant Reformation. And all the Protestant churches we see today are a direct result of that. So we see how that affected the music. There will be still a lot of musicians coming from churches, and now we have this distinction. Some of them will emerge from the Catholic realms, and some others will emerge from the Protestant tradition. What does that mean for music? Well, there are a lot of opportunities, a lot more opportunities than before for artists, opportunities for jobs, basically. So now, if you wanted to be a musician, you could be a choir master, you could be a singer in these choirs, you could be a solo singer, you can be an organist, an instrumentalist, a copyist, a composer, a teacher, an instrument builder. Basically, this society at the Renaissance time allowed for a lot of different new jobs for artists and musicians as well. And that came because there is this increasing interest in arts field. And another big change that collaborated in that was the patronage system, which is a system that, by the way, will remain for centuries to come in Europe. And basically, this system works in the way that artists in the Renaissance and on worked on commissions. So the wealthy will hire them to decorate their houses, or to paint their family pictures, or to create music in their houses. And as far as the music goes, at a certain social level, it was expected that one would maintain a personal chapel of musicians, or a personal group, if you will, performers and composers for the prestige and entertainment of the community. Some patrons were actually true music lovers. Some were even musicians themselves. And it was almost like it showed the wealth of a person if he would have a little orchestra, a little choir, little musicians at his disposal, and with a court composer, usually full-time on duty to create music for whatever event you happen at any given night at a court or any given day. And more special events will require bigger groups, and maybe smaller, more intimate events will require less people. But in any case, those musicians were being paid, and that's what we call the patronage system. Many of these musicians will live in court and will be there full time, while others will just show up as needed and being paid as needed. And so I think that's it about the patronage system. And last thing I want to point it out is the fact that amateurs have access to music as well. Not only the wealthy, but amateurs will started to have a hold on music books and wanting to learn how to sing just enough to have some fun with music, and sometimes have some lessons in a particular instrument. We see that musical instruments started to gain more attention during the Renaissance. That will explode in the Baroque era, which is the rise of instrumental music. But that already started. There was this stir in the waters, if you will, already happening in instrument builders, improving their instruments more and more, and people started to be more interested in learning how to play instruments, especially people coming from merchant class and the aristocracy. Here you have an idea of some musical instruments that were popular at the time, and just pointed out the organ. The organ will be a very popular instrument in the Baroque era, but it was already being developed during the Renaissance, as it were many types of bowed instruments like the viola and the violin. But as you can see, they didn't quite look like the instruments we know usually. They were still being developed. And if you click on this website, by the way, there are a lot of information. There is a lot of information, sorry, about these different instruments and how they operated, and you can hear them and you can get a lot more information. So check out this link if you have some time, and I may post an activity as well about these instruments. Next, we will study the different genres that originated in the Renaissance, starting with the madrigal and then going to the motet and then finally the mass. And also pointed out special and important